This is TWiT.
We have a couple of great genericide stories in the lineup for this week. So let's start with the one with the funny lawyer video, shall we? This is hysterical. Bill, I'm assuming you put this in the rundown, and I'm so glad you did. I hadn't seen this yet. But Velcro is among the companies out there that wishes that you wouldn't call every single product Velcro that includes products that they themselves did not make. They would vastly prefer that you use a more generic term and not their brand name of Velcro to describe hook and loop fastening technologies and mechanisms. And much like the Netflix lawyers that we talked about last week, they have made the legal profession look pretty darn fun and relatable by putting out this video, and we're just going to play you some here.
You think it's awesome for us, we're famous, but we're lawyers and it's causing us grief. Cause there are trademark laws being broken. It's all here in this short legal brief.
And we know that this is confusing because Velcro brand is who we are.
But if you call it all Velcro,
We're gonna lose our circle R. This is
We're going to lose our Circle R.
You call it Velcro, but we're begging you. This is f***ing hook and loop.
I just love this thing. Bravo, Velcro. Bravo. Well played.
Yes, well done.
So their message is, you know, and they go on to talk about Clorox bleach and what did they say? Inline skating versus rollerblading. Very many other companies who have had their successful product name become the name of everything in the industry. And they don't want that to happen to them. Bill, my question for you, as someone who writes a lot about trademark law, should we be thinking about a change in the law here so that companies don't have to do this? Shouldn't they be able to keep their trademark even if their brand is so successful that every hook and loop fastening system is referred to commonly as Velcro?
Well, it's a hard question because, right, and I think that the court cases that have dealt with genericide, they acknowledge that it's a really difficult situation because it's essentially punishing a company that's been so successful that they're losing their trademark. But at the same time, the policy function of genericide is that you don't want a company locking up terms that are ubiquitous, that are part of the lexicon. It's a safety valve almost for trademark law because trademark law does limit speech. It's in tension with the First Amendment. So, sure, it is unfortunate if you are Thermos and you were so successful at selling vacuum sealed cooling tubes or whatever the generic term they would have preferred was. That's unfortunate for you, but it shouldn't. If that's the way that the public has come to view your term, I think it's an appropriate limitation on trademark law's restrictions on speech.
Yeah, I think it's a really tough issue. I really think that companies should be able to keep their trademarks and not be victimized by their own successes. But there are good reasons, I suppose, to just try and fight against the genericization of your brand. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know what the origin of the law, and I have not read the cases, but just from an equity standpoint, I'm not sure, Bill mentions that this is in conflict with free speech. Well, most of copyright is in conflict with a pure free speech. And the question isn't can I stop a consumer from calling a non-Velcro branded hook and ladder or something Velcro? It's whether the company that's in competition with them can say on their branding that this is Velcro. And to me, it doesn't seem like bad for consumer welfare in an abstract perspective that like another company can't call, like another company's making this sort of thing, can't call what they're calling it Velcro. I don't see why that particularly matters. For consumers who aren't going to buy it because it's not called Velcro, even though it does the same thing, maybe there's a pricing differentiation, but I would imagine that it's going to equal out. Once again, I've not read the cases on this, but it seems to me that there's not, this isn't the First Amendment where we're talking about speech on politics or speech on anything else. This is where a company has made up a name of something and want to be the only people to call their product that, and that doesn't seem unconstitutional to me. But
right, I think
Go ahead,
the argument. I think the argument would be that when a brand has reached this point that we call genericide, that other companies, for competitive purposes, have a right to use a term that, the question when it comes to genericism is whether it's understood by the relevant public primarily to refer to a genus of goods. So it's not like this is a step that you take lightly. It's not like most brands are being victimized by this. It's a situation where you truly are claiming ownership over a name that competing companies need to use to compete with you. So I think we need to shy away from the idea that this is, that this is victimizing brands that like it's taking away people's trademark rights willy-nilly. I think it's a very, very sort of nuclear option for a court to rule that a brand that once had the distinctiveness that required the source designating power of a trademark has lost it. I don't think that's a step that courts take lightly. So I don't think it's, I don't think it's something that is. I don't think it's a pressing problem.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this is, to me, it's kind of like paying high taxes. Like, yeah, you have to pay higher taxes, but that means you're making more money. And in the same vein, like, yeah, your trademark's being taken away, but that's because you did that. I think the origin question is whether, what is the purpose of trademark? And if the purpose of trademark is for consumers to be able to differentiate between products on the basis of who's making them, then you're not taking it away from the company. You're taking away the differentiation from the consumer. Now, I don't think that there's a whole lot of, like, I don't think anyone's a quote unquote victim in this situation. They would be losing a property right, but they've dominated the market to such an extent that that's a real consideration. I don't think this is like hurting companies. This isn't hurting innovation. This isn't hurting these kind of things. So I'm not overly worried about this. I agree with that. But I do think it's an interesting question about what it does to the market, and if there's any analysis about, does competition actually increase when you take away the trademark? Does pricing come down? And if it doesn't, then what's the point?